Welcome to the Good Old Days of Radio show. This is John Tefteller, your host, and we are here on a Tuesday with our either comedy or drama. We have chosen drama in a way for today, although this is a little bit on the humorous side, I believe. This is a program called Request Performance, which was the American USA version of Command Performance, sponsored by Campbell's Soup and produced by the Maskers Club of Hollywood. We've had a couple others of these in the recent weeks. This one is one by request of me because I happen to like Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce as Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Now, that's kind of what you're going to hear today, except, and this is the twist, Nigel Bruce is going to play Sherlock Holmes and Basil Rathbone is going to play Dr. Watson. Now, I've never heard this, and it's a great idea. I don't know how it's going to come off, but we shall see. This is a half-hour program from November 4th, 1945. It's program number 5 of Request Performance, and it was aired originally on the CBS radio network.
The makers of Campbell's Soup bring you Request Performance. The stars you've requested tonight are Dick Powell, June Allison, Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce, also Dr. Lee DeForest, the father of radio, Leith Stevens and his orchestra, all in Request Performance, produced by the Maskers Club of Hollywood. Your singing master of ceremonies tonight, Dick Powell.
I saw you standing in the sun, and you were something to see. I know what I liked, and I liked what I saw, and I said to myself, that's for me. A lovely morning, I remarked, and you were quick to agree. You wanted to walk, and I nodded my head as I breathlessly said, that's for me. I left you standing under stars the day adventures are through. There's nothing for me but the dream in my heart, and the dream in my heart, that's for you. Oh, my darling, that's for you.
Thank you. That song was requested by Miss Elizabeth Thompson of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. As you know, this is the program that answers your requests. And here to help me answer the mail is this week's most requested actress, one of Hollywood's brightest new stars, June Allison.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Powell.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, Miss Allison. Yes, good evening. Or may I call you June?
Oh, certainly.
You know, I'm quite a fan of yours.
I'm quite a fan of yours. Say, you know, I have a feeling we've met someplace before.
Me too. Wonder where it was.
Oh, of course, I know now. We were married a few weeks ago.
So we were. Yes, so we were. Congratulations.
Oh, likewise, I'm sure.
By the way, what are you doing these days?
Well,
You're not doing the laundry, I know that.
No, but I've been making a picture at MGM called A Sailor Takes a Wife.
Sailor Takes a Wife. Fantasy, huh? But, June, we've got a lot of mail to answer here on Request Performance. You think you can help me answer it?
I do.
Love that answer.
Here's a letter from Mr. D. McGee of Kansas City, Missouri. He says, Dear Request Performance, I heard you say on your program that you can turn the tables on people. How about doing a Sherlock Holmes story where Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes switch parts? Can we do it, Dick?
Can we do it? Don't forget, Junie, that as Richard Rogue, I'm an active member of the exalted and distinguished fraternity of radio detectives.
Well, give.
The first thing to do is ask the man who plays the role of Sherlock Holmes, Basil Rathbone. I'll be delighted to assist in answering Mr. McGee's request, if it's all right with Dr. Watson.
Well, what about it, Nigel Bruce?
I say, you mean I'm to play Sherlock Holmes and solve the crime and get the girl and all that sort of thing?
That's right, and Basil Rathbone will play Dr. Watson.
I say, this ought to be a jolly bit of fun. Jolly. Basil, may I borrow your pipe and your houndstooth jacket?
Certainly, and here's my deer stalker hat.
Fine, I'll slip it on. There. How do I look in this deer stalker?
Very nice, but tilt it down a bit over your left antler.
There we are. Like this?
That's fine, old boy.
Music, old boy.
Well, here I am in my lodgings in Baker Street with my good friend Dr. Watson beside me.
Splendid characterization so far, huh? Well, here we go again.
I say, Watson, hand me my magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass.
What in the world are you doing?
I'm playing Dr. Watson.
But, what are you saying?
I don't know. What have you been saying all these years?
What a pity, my dear Watson, we don't have a fascinating crime to solve.
Yes, it's a pity. It's a great... pity.
I think someone has been murdered.
Amazing, Holmes. How did you arrive at that deduction?
Elementary, my dear Watson. If you will just open that door, you will find the mortal remains of a plumpish woman of 48 with graying hair, hazel eyes, pale complexion, a blue dress, and a pink hat.
I'll open the door. Good gracious, for once, Holmes, you're wrong.
Wrong?
Well, it's a red hat.
There is only one thing to do. I'll reconstruct the crime. Watson, old fellow, just place yourself outside the door, exactly where the corpse was standing.
Very well.
Now, I shall close the door. Just as I thought. Dead.
Dead. I say, that's splendid. Now I can play Sherlock Holmes all the time.
What blows in here, Joes?
I beg pardon?
Well, how come L. Rathbone is so horizontal?
I don't quite follow you, old boy.
Look, I'm a detective on the radio, too. What are you two squares up to?
I was recreating a crime in order to solve it.
Oh, Jenny, dear. You've got bats in your badges, boys. Recreating the crime got to go by with a bustle.
Got to go by?
Sure, that went out with button shoes. You're singing a tune from Saskatoon.
Oh, really? Saskatoon? Tell me, old chap, what's your name?
Richard Road, private eye, and detective extraordinary. If some ace wants to dip a Betsy in your medulla, just ring Road.
Well, why should anybody want to Betsy my medulla?
Well, you can never tell when some con you've helped can may bust out of the poke and try to stash your shiv in your chubby pink and white.
My dear fellow, I am convinced that you'll go every bit as far in radio as I have.
What makes you think so?
Nobody can understand you either.
You know, the requests that you listeners send to Campbell Soup's Hollywood come from every spot in the United States and Canada. And no matter where you live, you'll find Campbell Soups at your nearest grocer's waiting for you to request it. All you ladies who are looking for ways to serve cheery November suppers will do just fine anytime you start off with big plates of good, hot soup. Campbell's Tomato Soup is a mighty good choice these days. And now your grocer has the new pack ready to help you with your meal plans. That's right, the new pack's in. And say, I just wish you could see the tomatoes that Campbell's use. They're the world's finest. Plump, luscious beauties ripened in summer sunshine and picked right at the peak of perfection. You ought to see, too, how carefully Campbell's blend these extra fine tomatoes and golden table butter into a smooth puree. How they season it just so to point up the zippy tomato taste. Good. How about it now? Want to put Campbell's Tomato Soup down on your next market list? It'll be a big help in serving tempting and nutritious fall meals. Campbell's Soup on your shelf is like a part-time cook in your kitchen.
This is the week that the entire broadcasting industry is celebrating the 25th anniversary of radio. Dr. Melvin Lee of Ligonier, Indiana, writes that he'd like to have Request Performance recreate the first radio broadcast that was ever made. Well, here's the man who knows exactly what happened, because he not only made the first broadcast, but made it possible. Request Performance is proud to present the father of radio, the man who invented the three-element radio tube, one of America's most illustrious scientists, Dr. Lee DeForest.
Thank you, Dick. Did I hear you say something about the 25th anniversary of radio?
That's right, Doctor. Can you tell us something about your first radio broadcast 25 years ago?
No, Dick, I can't.
You can't? Why not?
Because my first broadcast was not 25 years ago. It was 38 years ago.
You mean to say we're celebrating the wrong anniversary? According to the scratch sheets here, KDKA pumped out the first broadcast in 1920 when they announced the election of President Harding.
Some say that was the first regular scheduled broadcast, and it was an important milestone in radio history. But actually, the world's first radio broadcast was 13 years earlier, in 1907, from my laboratory in the old Parker Building in New York City.
Can you recreate that first broadcast for us, Doctor?
Well, Dick, I was a much younger man then than I am now, so I don't know that I'm exactly right for the part. But with your permission, I will play myself in the first radio ever broadcast.
Oh, come on, Lee. Let's go home.
Connect up the B batteries, Cliff.
Oh, what for? We know it works.
There's one more idea I want to try.
You and your ideas. Hey, Doc, that arc won't last another 5 minutes.
That's plenty long enough for what we have to do. What would you like to hear on the gramophone?
Well, you're the music expert, Lee. You pick it.
All right.
What are you doing?
Hold it. This is the DeForest Laboratory, experimenting with a wireless telephone. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Who are you talking to?
I'm broadcasting.
You're what?
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can hear me, call Murray Hill, 6442. Please. If you can hear me, call Murray Hill, 6442. Please. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Lord, these earphones, they just talked.
What?
I just heard a voice through these earphones.
Hey, George, you better go ashore. You're getting Dot Hash happy.
Put on the phones yourself. See what you hear.
I'll hear Dot Stashes.
Put on these earphones.
All right.
And if you can hear me, call the DeForest Laboratory, Murray Hill, 6442.
Hey,
We now play the William Tell Overture on our gramophone.
what did I tell you?
Music on a wireless. Hey, come on, George. We better go ashore. We got a telephone call to make.
DeForest Laboratory.
Hey, we heard your thing
You did? Where were you?
on the ship out in New York Harbor. We heard it on our Sparks outfit. Words, talking, and music. The William Tell Overture.
How far out were you?
Oh, about a mile and a half.
A mile and a half. Thanks very much, young man. Thanks for calling.
Say, Doc, that's wonderful. You know, if we fuss around long enough, we might even be able to reach Brooklyn.
Cliff, if we fuss around long enough, we'll be able to reach around the world. Well, that's the way it happened, Dick. That was the world's first radio broadcast, 38 years ago.
What do you think of your baby now, Dr. DeForest?
Well, I like anything that helps to bring people closer together. And as long as radio continues to do that, I'm a very proud father.
Talking about radio history, Mrs. Ellie Gordon Martin of Birmingham, Alabama, writes that her favorite radio program, Hollywood Hotel, has been off the air for these many years. And she'd like to have us bring back a few memories of it on request performance. Request granted, Mrs. Martin. June Allison and I will do some going back for you. Because I've got my digs in these memories, too. Remember on Friday nights when your old radio used to make a sound like this?
Hollywood Hotel, good evening. Hollywood Hotel, good evening. Who's in the orchid room tonight? Why, there's Dick Powell and a star-filled review. Hollywood Hotel, good evening.
Yes, 5 years full of Friday nights started out that way. We had some great old times back there in the orchid room at Hollywood Hotel. Yes, sir. Some great old times.
What does that mean?
Well, Junie, didn't you ever hear Hollywood Hotel?
Oh, come to think of it, I did hear it once. My mother left my cradle right next to the radio, and I...
June! Please, it was not that long ago.
Well, let's go back to the dark ages and listen to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are lots of kids about my age who would sort of like to latch on to the proceedings at the orchid room.
Why don't we hop a cab, Junie, and pay Hollywood Hotel a visit?
Well, Dick Powell. Well, welcome to Hollywood Hotel. It's been a long time. We've missed you.
Thanks, Mr. Wilson. What plays in the orchid room these days?
Oh, the orchid room's been closed for several years now.
Oh, gee, that's too bad. It was a great old place. Couldn't I just wander in and show it to Junie?
We would just like to look around for a few minutes.
Well, it's awfully dusty and dark, my dear. It might be frightening for you.
Oh, I'll hold her hand.
Well, that's what I say. It might be frightening for you.
Same old Mr. Wilson. Come on, Junie, let's look around.
Gosh, this must have been some place in its heyday, but it's kind of eerie now.
Oh, it was a glamorous place, Junie. The orchestra was over there, and tables were all around the dance floor jammed with stars. And right about here, a guy used to stand in front of a microphone, and a spotlight used to snap on from way up there, and he'd sing,
Sweetheart, there must be happiness ahead. I'm sure we'll spend a day of cheer for every little tear we've shed. Sweetheart, I see our happiness ahead, and there's a house beside a stream, exactly like your dream book said. Why don't we make light of our sorrows and smile till they are done? We've so many tomorrows to find our place in the sun. So dream on. Love is bound to see us through. Just paint the future rosy red. There's happiness ahead for you.
You must have cut quite a figure out there, Mr. Powell, in that spotlight and everything.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't suppose you ever noticed any of those glamorous girls here at Hollywood Hotel?
Girls?
Yes, you know, skirts and sweaters and...
Oh, those! Oh, no. Oh, no, honey, this was strictly a business deal.
Dick!
Well, Jenny, what do you know?
Oh!
Yeah, what do you know?
Why, Dick Powell! Oh, I've never been so glad. Well, I've simply got to throw my arms around you and give you a great big kiss.
Strictly a business deal.
Oh, Junie, listen. You see, Virginia and I... Virginia and I used to have a sort of a running romance here at Hollywood Hotel.
A running romance?
That's right.
Who chased who?
Well, it was all in the script. You see, the writers dreamed this up for us.
Handy. You're always stuck to the script, of course.
Of course.
No ad-libbing?
Oh, heavens forbid, never.
Oh, I'm so glad to see you, Dick. I just got to throw my arms around your neck and kiss you again.
By the way, who's writing your script these days, dearie?
Oh, Dick. Who's the little girl with you?
Jenny, I forgot to introduce you to. This is Mrs. Powell.
His mother.
Oh, you're his little bride. But, Dick, I didn't realize. Well, we can't go back on an old tradition. I guess I'll have to kiss the groom.
Kiss the tradition and leave the groom alone, please.
I knew you'd be a good sport about it. Come on, Dick. Come on.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether I should or
Say,
not.
how did you used to end that Hollywood Hotel program of yours? Well, did they say goodnight to you from Hollywood? Did they say this is the Columbia... It's 10 o'clock. Well, big as she is, I'm going to have to slug her.
Now, relax, honey, relax. After all, a gentleman occasionally has to bow to his memories.
You've bowed so much you're round-shouldered. Now, come on. Go.
Now, wait a minute, Junie. The way we always used to check out of Hollywood Hotel was with a song. Something like this.
Thanks a million thanks to you for everything that love could bring. You brought me. You made a million dreams come true. And so I'm saying thanks a million to you.
There's one thing that Hollywood Hotel and Request Performance have in common. Sponsorship by the makers of Campbell Soups. And just as Campbell Soups have always brought you the finest in Hollywood entertainment, so they bring you the best in mealtime goodness. For instance, there's nothing hits the spot quite like a steaming plate of Campbell's tomato soup. Why, even the bright look of it makes you want to dip in your spoon. Then when you do, and that zesty tomato flavor takes hold of your appetite, well, you know right off why this is the soup most folks like best. It's so filled all through with the garden goodness of extra luscious tomatoes, smoothly blended with golden table butter and gently seasoned to point up the lively tomato taste.
Good. I serve Campbell's tomato soup pretty often with milk added. It makes such a delicious and extra nourishing cream of tomato. We like it as our main lunch dish and to start off family suppers.
Yes, ladies, and you'll all be glad to know that now the new pack Campbell's tomato soup is at your grocer's, ready to help you with your meal plans. Campbell's soup on your shelf is like a part-time cook in your kitchen.
We have an odd request here from Mr. Lee Kavanaugh of St. Louis, who asks that we broadcast the reading of a will, a very unusual will in which you are the beneficiary. Request granted. Here is the last will and testament of Charles Lounsbury, read for you by one of the most celebrated voices of our time, Basil Rathbone. I, Charles Lounsbury, being of sound mind, do now make and publish this my last will and testament. I leave to children the dandelions of the fields and the daisies thereof, with the right to play among them freely, warning them at the same time against the thistles. And I devise to children the yellow shores of creeks and the golden sands beneath the waters, with the dragonflies that skim the surface of the waters, and the white clouds that float over giant trees. And I leave to children the night and the moon and the train of the Milky Way to wonder at. And I give to each child the right to choose a star that shall be his. I devise to boys jointly all the useful, idle fields where ball may be played, and all the snow-clad hills where one may coast, and all the streams and ponds where one may skate, to have and to hold for the period of their boyhood. And I give to said boys each his own place at the fireside at night, with all pictures that may be seen in the burning wood, to enjoy without let or hindrance. Lovers, I devise their imaginary world with whatever they may need. As the stars of the sky, the red, red roses by the wall, the snow of the hawthorn, the sweet strains of music, or aught else they may desire to figure to each other the beauty of their love. And to those who are no longer children, or youths, or lovers, I leave the knowledge of what a rare, rare world this is. Junie, come here. Here's a letter I think you'll like. Will you read it?
Sure thing, Dick. Let's see. Dear Request Performance, we've just been married, and we wanted to spend our honeymoon in Hollywood, especially a few moments up on famous Lookout Mountain. Could you have June Allison and Dick Powell take us up there? Gratefully, Mr. and Mrs. Ray Siegel of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Gee, that sounds like a wonderful idea.
Mr. and Mrs. Siegel, we know the place well. We'll be glad to take you up there. Here we go to the top of Lookout Mountain.
Look at all the lights, Dick.
Yeah, it's pretty darn beautiful, I'd say.
All Hollywood spread out around us. Oh, I'll never, ever forget Lookout Mountain. Never.
The altitude makes your head swim?
My head's been swimming all night.
Shall we go home, honey?
Oh, no. I don't want to say goodnight.
Put your head on my shoulder. That's the idea. Well, here we are. Out of cigarettes. Holding hands and yawning. See how late it gets?
Two sleepy people by dawn's early light.
Too much in love to say goodnight.
Well, here we are. Don't we look a mess?
Lipstick on my collar.
Well, it wrinkles in my dress.
Two sleepy people who know very well they're too much in love to break the spell. Do you remember the nights we used to linger in the hall?
Mother didn't like you at all.
Do you remember the reason why we married in the fall?
Oh, yes, to rent a little nest.
And get a little rest.
Well, here we are.
Just about the same.
Foggy little fella.
Drowsy little dame.
Two sleepy people by dawn's early light, and too much in love to say goodnight.
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Siegel, I'm sorry you couldn't get up to Hollywood's Lookout Mountain during your honeymoon the way you planned it. But confidentially, Ray, when you put your arm around that gal and hold her close, well, I hear tell it's just as good in Harrisburg. Good night.
You've been listening to Request Performance, the stars you asked for performing your requests. Tonight's stars were Dick Powell, June Allison, Basil Rathbone, Nigel Bruce, Dr. Lee DeForest, your composer-conductor, Leith Stevens, and your director, William N. Robeson. Next week, the makers of Campbell Soup bring you another request performance. The stars you asked for doing the things you asked them to do. Next week's cast includes Jack Benny, Katherine Grayson, Sidney Greenstreet, and Mary Astor. Tune in next Sunday night, and be sure to hear Campbell Soup's Jack Carson Show every Wednesday night. This is Del Sharpert inviting you to send in your request tonight to Campbell Soup's Hollywood. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Okay, Sidney Greenstreet and Mary Astor on the next program. What are they doing? Scenes from the Maltese Falcon without Humphrey Bogart? Don't know. Anyway, that went about as I expected with Rathbone and Bruce switching roles. They really couldn't do it, but it was done more as a humorous little skit than anything else, and interesting. And Dick Powell trying to recreate Hollywood Hotel. Hollywood Hotel was a program that was on in the mid-30s. I believe Luella Parsons was the host. And they did everything on there related mostly to MGM films. So there's one where they do scenes from A Night at the Opera with the Marx Brothers, one they do scenes from A Day at the Races. They do one with Clark Gable and Mutiny on the Bounty. All kinds of really fun things from the mid-30s, but most of those don't exist, or at least haven't been located yet. I'll say it that way. As far as the Sherlock Holmes programs, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Universal Studios, who produced the Holmes films with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, was actually given a complete set of transcriptions of the Sherlock Holmes radio series because towards the end of each program, they would have a little promotional thing for the latest film to be released by Universal of Sherlock Holmes in the theaters. So they got a whole set of discs which sat there for years and years and years, and then went up in smoke in the infamous Universal fire of 2005, 2006. So a lot of good that did anybody, to have them just sit there for 50 years or 40 years and then have them burned to the ground. Recently did a podcast talking about things like this, and that reminded me of that horrible story. Anyway, check that out if you're interested in knowing about what's become of a lot of these radio shows and where they come from and all that. We did a special one of those, and you can hear that on the Good Old Days of Radio show. If you look it up on goodolddaysofradio.com, you can find it. Or wherever else you listen to your shows, podcasts, you can find it. Anyway, John Tefteller and the Good Old Days of Radio show will be back on Thursday with episode 5 of Adventures by Morse, The City of the Dead. We're about halfway through that wild and crazy, strange show. So come back for that, and come back next Tuesday for more comedy or drama. We'll see. Okay, see you later. Bye.